On 3i Atlas, I didn't contact the media. I just wrote a few papers, and then it became viral.
But Avi, you are a professor, an esteemed professor at Harvard. When you speak about such matters, people listen. I mean, surely you would know that that would be picked up in the media.
I didn't expect it to be so big.
Avi Loeb. Avi Loeb.
Avi Loeb. Avi Loeb is arguably the most controversial astrophysicist in the world, but he's been a professor here at Harvard for more than 30 years. So when he says that there's a chance that an alien spaceship disguised as a comet is headed to Earth, people listen. So I'm going to Avi's home right now to find out why he's willing to risk his reputation for this theory. Does he really believe it? And if he does, if he's right, what does this mean for all of us humans? Avi Loeb, thank you so much for making time to talk to me. I know you're a busy man these days.
Well, my pleasure. Well, some of the busy time is taken by the public, who is very curious about what I'm doing.
Well, I think people have a lot of questions because you've said that you think there's a 40% chance that this mysterious interstellar object, 3i Atlas, a 40% chance that it's alien technology. Do you still stand by those odds?
So far, it could go down to 0 or 100% once we get more data. Science is fun because if you allow yourself to learn, you might realize that you didn't expect. Nature might be far more imaginative than Hollywood scripts on aliens. And I very much look forward to finding out what this new object, 3i Atlas, is.
But so far on this day,
yes,
August 24th, 2025, you put the odds at 40% that it's alien tech.
I do.
You know, Avi, I've had a hard time finding people or organizations that agree with those odds right now, right? I mean, NASA, the European Space Agency, other astrophysicists, astronomers. I mean, they all say that 3i Atlas is like a good old-fashioned comet. Why is that?
Well, because people are used to past experiences, and only over the past decade we started finding interstellar objects. It's a new frontier. We don't know if we were visited before. Now we have the capability of checking objects that arrive to the inner solar system from far away. And this object looks anomalous to me for a variety of reasons. And all I'm advocating is observing it with all the assets we have in space, on the ground, just to figure it out. Because if you see objects coming from the street to your backyard, you might as well check whether any of them is not a rock, but a tennis ball thrown by a neighbor.
So I want to dig in to this object, 3i Atlas. It was discovered on July 1st, 2025 by the Atlas telescope in Chile. At what point did it hit your radar?
Immediately, because I had to wake up at 2 a.m. that night when it was announced to speak on Coast to Coast. And one of the listeners alerted me by email to this object. And immediately it looked strange to me because it was bright.
So 3i Atlas is technically classified as an interstellar object. And everybody agrees that it's an interstellar object. That means that it's something that's coming from outside of our solar system. And so far, humanity has only been able to detect 3 of these. This is the 3rd one, correct?
Yes.
So let's go through some of these anomalies point by point, the reasons why 3i Atlas stood out to you as being different.
This object is presumably quite big because it's quite bright. And
you know this because you see it through telescopes on Earth
yes,
and in space.
Right. I calculated immediately that if it's a solid object that reflects sunlight, it must be 20 kilometers in diameter. That's huge.
So I thought that the Hubble Space Telescope had estimated that the size of 3i Atlas was from 320 meters to 5.6 kilometers. Do you disagree with those numbers?
I disagree with that analysis. In fact, I'm analyzing the Hubble Space Telescope data right now. And there was a later result that came from Spherex, a space observatory, that puts the diameter at 46 kilometers, a factor of 10 more larger than the estimate by the analysis team of the Hubble image.
You are essentially disagreeing with NASA and the Hubble Space Telescope's estimates in terms of the size. I mean, I think for most people, they view NASA and Hubble, one of the most famous telescopes in the world, as kind of being the end-all be-all of science. But you're saying you disagree with NASA and Hubble's size assessment.
Well, as a scientist, I obviously accept their data. The question is, how do you interpret the data? And it's not really NASA, it's specific individuals that analyzed the data and came to some conclusion. But in fact, the model they used, I think, needs to be corrected. Science is work in progress, and you should always believe data, but you should look at how scientists interpret the data and whether that's reliable. And, science is not what you find in textbooks. It's not what you find in press conferences. Science is the interpretation of data that is always subject to revisions, because either there will be more data coming along or the previous analysis was done incorrectly. You look at the sky at night and you see 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy alone. I think it's very arrogant of us to imagine that we are unique and special, that Elon Musk was the most accomplished space entrepreneur since the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. And the reason I say that is that most of the stars are older than the sun by billions of years. And you can ask, where will Voyager, our own spacecraft, where will Voyager itself be in a billion years? It turns out that Voyager will visit any part of the Milky Way galaxy disk within a billion years. It can go all the way to the other side. And that means that they could have arrived to our backyard by now. And therefore, we should be agnostic, just observe the objects entering the solar system. And if any of them were targeting the inner solar system, because that's where the interesting action is, or maybe they were listening to us. We've been broadcasting radio signals for a century, and we were careless. So if they are not far from us, they know about us, and they might not be visible to us. They might not transmit any signal because it's to their advantage to avoid predators. And then when they see that we are evolving technologically to a certain level that might be a threat to them, they might do a reconnaissance mission or visit us. And, that's a possibility that we need to contemplate. Now, I'm not naive. I don't expect the political system or the financial system to respond to this possibility until we get a wake-up call. And
do you think this could be the wake-up call?
Yeah. So the question is, will I be happier if 3i Atlas is a rock or if 3i Atlas is technological? Because
what's the answer to that?
Obviously, if it's a rock, I will be relieved because there is no risk, no threat to humanity. Okay. But on the other hand, you see what humanity is doing right now. We invest $2.4 trillion in military budgets worldwide and in conflicts among people, which is pretty much a waste of money because most of the real estate is actually out there in interstellar space. And we are focused on what happens on our rock. We are very short-sighted. We don't look up. And my point is that a visit might actually change our perspective. And we might even realize, as President Reagan argued at the United Nations a long time ago, that it's better for us to cooperate because we are all in the same boat. And so my view is that it may actually be beneficial for us to realize that there might be a threat from the sky, in which case we will invest a portion of our resources in creating an alert system of interceptors within the solar system, and we would feel connected to each other on this rock. And so in that sense, it might be actually beneficial to be visited.
So you hope it's alien tech?
I'm still torn apart because I enjoy my morning jog at sunrise every day. If it turns out to be alien technology, my phone will not stop ringing. I might be invited to Stockholm, which will be a distraction as far as I'm concerned, because I don't really care about a prize given by humans to humans. I really want to figure them out and learn from some smarter kid in our cosmic neighborhood.
Avi, what you are talking about would be the biggest thing to ever happen to humanity. It is a big claim to make, and it's even more credible because your resume and your credentials are impeccable. You're a Harvard professor, and you have been for more than 30 years. You led Harvard's astronomy department for almost a decade. You correctly predicted features of black hole shadows years before a telescope imaged them. And you're now saying there's a 40% chance that alien technology is headed towards Earth.
Well, we should monitor this object because it has some features that are quite unusual, and I'm happy to get into them. So
let's get into them. But before we do you, I just went through all of these credentials, your resume and all that. Do you have any concern, or are you at all worried that you're going to risk all those credentials, all your credibility, because you're promoting a theory like this?
Well, the point is, it's not about me. It's not about any particular individual. It's about what lies out there, right? So if we don't recognize a technological object as such, it doesn't make it natural, for the same reason that the Vatican not recognizing what Galileo saw through his telescopes. The Earth was orbiting the sun for 4.45 billion years before the Vatican even existed. The Earth didn't care about what the Vatican says and how wrong it is. The Vatican corrected itself 350 years after Galileo died. They put him in house arrest. It was not about Galileo. It was about the fact that the Earth is not at the center of the universe. It doesn't matter what one person says, how many likes I get, whether I will be right or wrong. This is not the issue. The issue is, do we have neighbors? Just think about Pascal's wager. He argued that we should consider the notion of God, because if God exists, the implications would be huge. And I argue the same about a visit. If a visit will happen, the implications would be huge. Therefore, we shouldn't dismiss that and insist that everything we see coming into the solar system is the same as what we saw already within the solar system, which is the natural tendency of comet experts.
So let's do this. Let's dive into the evidence that you think you've seen from 3i Atlas that make you think there's a almost 50-50 chance that this could be alien tech. And we've talked about the size, but what is it specifically about the trajectory that has you thinking this could be alien tech?
Well, the trajectory of 3i Atlas is aligned with the plane of the planets around the sun, and within 5 degrees or so. And the chance of that happening at random is 1 in 500. So in that sense, it looks as if this trajectory might have been planned and it's fine-tuned for a purpose. Most comet experts ignore the fine-tuning of the trajectory of 3i Atlas. They also argue that it does look like there is a coma, some glow around the object, but they're missing the fact that there is no cometary tail, and that in fact this glow appears to be symmetric around the object.
So NASA says that Hubble has detected a weak tail, which will grow as it heats up and gets closer to the sun. Do you disagree with that?
Well, just look at the image. There is no evidence for a tail. And beyond that...
so are they lying? Are they misinterpreting the data?
It's wishful thinking.
It's wishful thinking.
Yeah, it's imagining things that would confirm the prejudice. But if you look at the image, there is no evidence for a tail. Now, this object also is coming on a retrograde trajectory, meaning opposite to the direction of motion of the planets. And if the object wanted to do a maneuver or to release mini probes, that's perfect for that purpose, because instead of chasing the planets, those mini probes can meet them head on as the planets move in the opposite direction.
What do you mean by mini probes?
I mean a mothership that instead of slowing down and actually visiting planets or going near them, it actually releases probes that are doing the job for it, and then it can continue on its path, and it will get transmissions from those small probes as they get close to the planets.
And the mini probes would come to Earth.
Could
or
come to
come
Earth.
close to
Yeah.
Earth.
So I am actually leading the Galileo project that is building observatories around the United States. We have 3 of them, one in Massachusetts, not far from here, another one in Pennsylvania, and a third one in Nevada. And we will start operations of all 3 of them probably in September 2025. So I asked the research team, to actually check if there is enhanced activity of anomalous objects in the Earth's atmospheres after 3I Atlas comes closest to the sun, because that's the point where one can benefit from gravitational assist by the sun. But you can actually slow down a spacecraft most effectively closest to the sun, and if 3I Atlas will do it itself, or if it will release mini probes that will intercept the Earth, it will be after October 29th when it comes closest to the sun. And actually the Earth would be on the opposite side of the sun. We won't be able to observe it. We cannot intercept it. And perhaps that was intentional.
So you run the Galileo project at Harvard now. You talk about Galileo quite a bit, who famously was the first to declare that the Earth orbited the sun, not the other way around, defying conventional wisdom of the time. Do you see yourself as a modern day Galileo?
Well, I don't see myself as anything. I mean,
you have to have thought about the comparison. Come on.
About 15 years ago, I was invited to give a series of lectures in Pisa at the Scuola Normale Superiore, and the title of the lectureship, it was sort of like an award, was Cathedra Galileana. So that was my first introduction to Galileo. And then I also realized that the name Galileo is drawn from the northern part of Israel, the Galilee.
Oh.
And Israel is the place I was born in. So there are some connections, but I appreciate the most his ability to rely on data and claim something that is not popular at the time, just because the data suggests it. And of course, science is done by iterations, but we should not be afraid of taking risks, making mistakes, because even if it turns out that 3I Atlas is a natural object, and I claim that it might be technological, even if I'm proven to be wrong, we will learn something new about rocks that arrive to us from far away. And, you know, it would take us millions to billions of years to visit the yards around other neighboring stars, you know, and instead we have something that came to our immediate environment. If we can land on a rock like that, even if it's natural, we can retrieve some material, bring it to Earth, and figure out whether it has the building blocks of life as we know it, you know, so there is a lot to be learned.
This isn't the first time that you've said that an interstellar object could be alien technology. In 2017, you said that Oumuamua could be alien technology, and it kind of left our solar system without allowing scientists to draw definitive conclusions, right? Yes. I mean, most scientists think it was a comet, a hydrogen iceberg, or a nitrogen shard.
Well, the thing
what do you think it is?
Well, the thing is that there were anomalies that are completely different about this object. For example, it had an extreme shape, most likely flat, disc-like. You know, at the 92% confidence level, that was concluded in a very detailed scientific paper. So it had a very extreme shape, which is unlike any of the rocks we have seen before. But moreover, it was pushed away from the sun by some mysterious force without showing any evidence for gas around it or dust like comets do. And I suggested it's just the reflection of sunlight pushing it. And actually the same telescope in Hawaii that discovered Oumuamua 3 years later found another object which was definitely pushed by reflecting sunlight. And then within a month or a few months, the spectrum of this object indicated that its surface is made of aluminum. And in fact, it's a rocket booster that was launched by NASA in 1966. So here you have it, an example of a technological object pushed by reflecting sunlight. And we know that it's technological because we produced it. But the question is, who produced Oumuamua? And, on January 2nd,
But
this
you
year,
think Oumuamua was produced by someone or something?
well, I think because to make a thin object that is pushed by reflecting sunlight, is a process that nature doesn't naturally give us. As of now, Oumuamua is being regarded as a dark comet, which is an oxymoron because a comet is identified by the release of gas and dust around it. So you see the cometary tail. The current nomenclature is similar to arguing that an elephant is a zebra without stripes.
So you think Oumuamua was extraterrestrial technology?
Yes, some material that maybe was torn apart from a technological gadget or a light sail or a broken piece of a Dyson sphere, a megastructure around another star that by now evolved and pushed it apart.
Oumuamua came and went without posing any discernible harm to humanity, right? I mean,
True.
as far as I know.
Right.
Why do you think 3i Atlas might be different? Do you think it could be hostile?
Yeah, because if it's so big and if it is technological, it means that it's functional because it's targeting the inner solar system. It's not on a random trajectory the way Oumuamua was. It's on a very fine-tuned trajectory, which means that it's still working. Okay, it selected this trajectory for a purpose. So if it turns out to be technological, we have to worry about the implications for not so much national security, but international security, because all humans would be affected.
Yeah. I mean, just sitting here interviewing you, a Harvard professor, I'm sitting here wondering if I need to be rethinking everything that I do between now and October 30th.
Yeah, well,
I mean, what do you think Earthlings should be doing to prepare right now, if you're right?
Well, I got a text message from someone who read my papers who said that he's trading options on the volatility of the stock market with an expiration date of October 29th, 2025, when 3i Atlas will come closest to the sun. But there is a bigger question of how should we respond to a visitor? And, it's very different from getting a radio signal from thousands of light years away, because then there is no urgency about how to respond. Here, it's like having a visitor to your backyard. If you don't respond properly, the visitor might show up at your front door, and the risk is imminent. One has to establish an international organization that would consider all the data that we collected and decide how to act on it. So I'm often asked, what do you imagine a technological object to be? And, my first assumption is if they visit our backyard before we visited their backyard, they must be more advanced than we are. They had the benefit of many more years than 1 century of science since quantum mechanics was discovered. For us, we are still at the infancy of our science and technology. So I would imagine they are much more advanced. And then, it would be really difficult for us to prevent them from doing things, because you need to be on par with technologies of other civilizations in order to respond effectively. But the best thing we can do in the future would be to establish an alert system of interceptors that would basically inform us about what may happen.
You just said the threat is imminent. I mean, are you changing how you live your day-to-day life, what you do? I mean, are you sounding the alarm? I mean, I know you're on news organizations and you do podcasts and you write your blog posts, but I mean, if you're right, the threat is imminent. I mean, this changes everything.
It does, if it's not a rock, but it may still be a rock. You see, and I wrote an essay, I write an essay every day or two on medium.com. And one of them was, should we message 3i Atlas? Mm-hmm. Which is sort of like...
I read that one.
Like asking, if there is a visitor to your backyard, should you go out and chat with that visitor? And my answer is, let's wait and get more data, especially from the Webb telescope, before deciding what to do about it. Because it would make no sense to message a rock,
Let's talk a little bit about your critics, because they're vocal just like you are. I'm sure I'm not saying anything that you haven't already heard. Oxford astronomer Chris Lintott said, any suggestion that 3i Atlas is artificial is nonsense on stilts, and it's an insult to the exciting work going on to understand this object. Astrophysicist Steve Desch, am I pronouncing his name right? Describes what you're doing as a breakdown of the peer review process and this scientific method. Why not just wait and go through the traditional peer review process instead of making your case on podcasts and in the news?
Well, you have to understand, first of all, that the scientific process is very subjective because a lot of people prefer to argue that everything should be explained by past knowledge because they feel attached to past knowledge. They build their reputation, their expertise on looking at rocks in the sky. Okay, if you go before 1803, it was thought that no rocks can fall from the sky. That was ridiculed. And then in 1803, there was a meteor shower in Liège, France, that was witnessed by a lot of people. And then the scientific community was convinced that rocks can fall from the sky in the form of meteors. And now, obviously, the comet experts insist that everything in the sky must be rocks, which I call the Stone Age of space exploration, because we ourselves, we polluted space with technological gadgets. And why should we assume that we are the only ones doing that? I'm saying we did it, therefore others can do it. And we should just be agnostic and monitor the sky. And if there are objects showing anomalous features, we should be open-minded to the possibility that they might be technological. Now, that makes those experts quite upset, and they attack me personally. I don't really care about it because it's not about me, it's about this object, okay? And the way to figure it out is to get more data on it rather than mud wrestle with those people. I don't care about what they say. It's not about this dispute that they have with me. Frankly, I think they are really driven by the attention that the public gives to this subject, instead of seeing it as an opportunity to communicate how exciting science is, the practice of science, not the final product of science. The public doesn't care if you discover an elementary particle and you put it in a textbook. It doesn't affect, people's lives as much. But if they see the process, it makes them excited because it's just like a detective story where the end is not clear. And I want to actually communicate with the public to show them that, first of all, science is not an occupation of the elite. It's not dictated by authority. I don't really care what NASA or any other expert says. I look at the data and I say what I think it is showing. And if it shows something unusual, we should attend to it. And, that's my honest opinion. I may be wrong, but that's the way of doing science. And that is a substitute to the way science is being portrayed to the public that actually, frankly, alienates the public, because the way it's portrayed is like the public being in a lecture hall and the scientists lecture to the public what the truth is, which we found many times in the past to be the wrong approach, because during COVID, a lot of people lost their trust in that advice that was given based on this approach. And I think the public should be part of the exploration. Science is being supported by taxpayers, and therefore scientists should attend to possibilities that the public is excited about. And all I'm doing is saying it's possible. In the context of Oumuamua, I said we don't see a cometary tail, and therefore it's not a comet. My colleagues, the same ones that criticize me now, were arguing that definitely there is a cometary tail, but it's invisible to us because this object is either a hydrogen iceberg or a nitrogen iceberg, the same people. And they were pretending to be the adults in the room that tell the kid, me, that the emperor has clothes. They're just invisible. And just in Hans Christian Andersen's tale, I feel privileged to play the role of the kid who just doesn't see the clothes and says the emperor has no clothes. And if academia boils down to always pretending that even, if you don't see a comet, it must be a dark comet, I think it's not a healthy place to be in, because it suppresses innovation. And really the biggest damage that I see in the way that I'm being attacked is not about, I don't care about myself. I feel confident at what I'm doing. I don't need approval from anyone. I don't have any social media presence. What I feel the biggest damage is for the fledgling scientists that enter science right now, and they see the attacks on me just deviating from the beaten path. And they do a calculation. If they want a job in academia, they have to conform to what everyone else is saying. And that may explain why there aren't as many path-breaking, disruptive discoveries in recent decades in science, because of this culture that suppresses any deviation from the dogma, from past ideas.
You brought up the erosion of public trust in science during COVID, but that's exactly what some of your critics are accusing you of doing right now. And they say if you're wrong, that it will lead to an erosion of public trust in astrophysics.
No, it would lead to erosion in the public trust in what Avi Loeb says. You see, so the point is, we don't really know what this object is. Okay, so why not stay curious? That's the approach of a kid. I keep coming back to that because really, even though I played many leadership roles in my career, I never surrendered to the idea that I should always appeal to what the dominant majority of the people around me say. I maintain my childhood wonder. And as a kid, one of the most traumatic things I had as a kid was at the dinner table, I would ask a difficult question and the adults in the room would pretend to know the answer, and their answer didn't make any sense. So I decided to become a scientist and answer the questions myself, because that's really the fun of doing science.
Your poor parents. You, as a parent of 2 kids right now, you must have asked some terribly difficult questions, Avi. What do you say to the people who say that you're unnecessarily playing up the alien angle, that you're a headline chaser, that you just relish the role of being a provocateur?
Okay, so on 3i Atlas, I didn't contact the media. I just wrote a few papers. The New York Post reported about them. They haven't even contacted me. And then it became viral. Every few seconds on X, I heard, there was a tweet about it. And I did not do anything actively. I did not put a press release. I did not contact reporters.
But Avi, you are a professor, an esteemed professor at Harvard. When you speak about such matters, people listen. Surely you would know that would be picked up in the media.
I didn't expect it to be so big, let's put it that way. And frankly, I don't really care, as I said, because, whether we have neighbors or not in our cosmic neighborhood, it doesn't really depend on which idea is popular here and whether I claim it or someone else claims it. And I think that in the coming decade, as the Rubin Observatory in Chile started operations in June, just before 3i Atlas was discovered, the team of the Rubin Observatory realized that they have 3i Atlas in their data stream from early June, but they didn't discover it. It was the Atlas telescope, their neighbor, that discovered it. At any event, this telescope, the Rubin Observatory, is far greater. Instead of 0.5 meter like the Atlas telescope, it's actually 8.4 meters in diameter, and it will potentially find an interstellar object every few months. And I think we're entering a new era where the discovery rate of interstellar object would be 100 times higher than in the past decade. And what that means is that we should check each and every rock to make sure that it's not a technological gadget. In the same way that archaeologists work, they dig into the ground. Obviously, their critics would say, you are finding mostly rocks. Why are you digging? You will find rocks. But they are looking for artifacts of civilizations that lived long ago. And I'm doing the same in interstellar space. And I think we should have a new field of study called space archaeology.
I've never heard of that before.
There is a new frontier to be studied, which is searching for artifacts near Earth. And that was never formulated as a research path. And within the Galileo project, we built 3 observatories that are monitoring the sky, the full sky at all times. Usually astronomical observatories focus on a small portion of the sky at any given time. And we're collecting data on a few million objects every year, and we're analyzing the data with machine learning software to look for outliers, things that are not human-made, not drones, balloons, airplanes, helicopters, satellites. And hopefully we will be able to tell if any of the few million objects next year appears to be of extraterrestrial technological origin.
I think a lot of people watching this are going to think, what should I take away from this interview, right? Should I be worried? Should I be scared? Should I be excited that we're not alone? I mean, how are you thinking about
very simply.
this?
I mean, many of us went on blind dates. I'm not sure about you, but I did. I met my wife on a
I've been
blind
on
date.
Oh, did
Yeah,
you?
yeah. So how do you approach a blind date? You don't know what will come your way. Now, this one is even more uncertain because when you have a partner that came from another star, all bets are off. You know, it would not look like you. It would not share your DNA. If it's more intelligent, because we, in restaurants, we serve animals that we think are less intelligent than we are. You know, I ate an octopus the other day in a fish restaurant in Boston. I felt really bad about it.
I don't eat octopus for that reason, because they're such intelligent creatures.
Exactly. So let's hope they will not put us in their soup. But actually, you don't want to shake the hand of an alien because you may get diseases that we've never imagined. Like all forms of life on Earth have a molecular structure that has a particular chirality. It's organized in a particular way, and we don't have any form of life organized the other way, the opposite, a mirror image of what we have. And so if aliens come with a mirror image of our form of life, we're not protected against any viruses or bacteria that might represent it. So I wouldn't shake their hands.
I wasn't planning on it, you know. You say all of this with a smile, right?
Yes, right.
Why are you so optimistic about this?
Well,
you come across as optimistic, but we're talking about being served for dinner in alien soup.
Well, I think of it just like living on a street, okay? And so when I have two daughters, and when they were born, they thought that the world centers on them, right? Because they got all the attention from me and my wife, and they didn't know more. They're training data sets, just like large language models. You know, you can think of babies as artificial intelligence systems where they have some training data sets which are limited to our home. You know, that was their data set. And so they thought that they're at the center of it. And they, at some point later on, they looked through the window and saw other houses on the street, but they never imagined that there are kids just like them who deserve as much attention as they do. And of course, the psychological shock came on the first day at the kindergarten when they saw a lot of kids, some of which are smarter than they are. And we, as a civilization, we did not mature yet. Now, to recognize that we might not be alone, we still maintain the view that even though we are not at the center of the street, at the center of the universe, the physical center, even though we are not there, we might be the only resident in our street. Okay, we are the intellectual center of the universe. And I think that is actually misguided, and I think it's very likely there were things like us billions of years ago, and they could have sent functioning devices that we might find in our backyard, and therefore we should check for that. Now, should we be worried, anxious about it? Not so much. It's just like realizing you live on the street, you don't know your neighbors. Maybe you can benefit from them if you realize they're smarter than you are. Let's just go out and explore. You know, that's the approach I take. If I had an opportunity to visit a spacecraft from aliens, I would love to do it just as a way of exploring something new. I'm willing to take risks and go on a blind date with a partner that I've never met, just for the fun of it, because I'm pretty much bored with what is happening and disappointed by what is happening here on Earth. It's sort of like going to a party and you are disappointed by the actions of the party goers, but then you look through the window and with the hope of seeing someone coming in that is different.
Well, they'd be different, all right. I think for a lot of people, it would completely transform their beliefs about society, friendships, family, religion, government.
True. Definitely, because government cannot protect us, even from a tsunami, right? The only
Yeah.
thing that governments could have done is to alert people for on the recent tsunami threat, but they couldn't prevent the tsunami from happening. And here we're talking about a tsunami on steroids coming from the sky. Obviously, governments cannot protect us, and such a threat could destabilize the world order. But we have to consider it as a possibility, given that now we can monitor the sky. Previously we were just like grass grazing cows, in a field where there are satellites, communication satellites flying overhead, but they don't even recognize that. And so we did not really monitor what flies into the inner solar system from far away. Now we have telescopes that can detect objects that are as big as tens of kilometers, all the way out to 10 times the Earth-Sun separation. And that allows us to see things coming into the solar system from far away. I'm saying, let's keep our eyes on the ball, not on me. People can bash me, attack me personally, on the ball, the way that...
Three-Eye Atlas.
Yeah,
Keep your eye
that
on
is the
that.
ball. It looks like a ball. Yeah. Just keep your eyes on the ball.
So when will we know, Avi? When will we know if Three-Eye Atlas is alien technology or just a plain old comet?
My hope is within a month or two, because as it gets closer to the sun, it will get warmed up. So we are turning the heat on Three-Eye Atlas, and if it's a comet, it will erupt. There will be outgassing. We will see water vapor.
We'll see a tail, more of a tail.
Yes, exactly. And then, I would bring my rank down to 0, because it would be just a comet, okay? And if it looks like a comet and it features all the properties of a comet, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
So Avi, provided that aliens do not come down to Earth and put you and me in their little alien stew, can we agree to sit back down once we know what Three-Eye Atlas is or is not and pick up this conversation?
I'll be delighted. One reason I'm seeking intelligence in outer space is because I don't often find it here on Earth.
Are you so just annoyed by mainstream science and other scientists,
No.
like from a lack of critical thinking or creativity? Or
I'm not annoyed, but I think it's a missed opportunity. Given the level of funding that science gets, we should be more curious rather than build those echo chambers where we keep repeating the mantras of past knowledge. And you might argue the mainstream is conservative and proved itself. No. When I started astrophysics about 40 years ago, the most popular view was we don't know what most of the matter in the universe is. It's called dark matter. 85% of the matter is made of this substance that we don't know what it is. And the popular view was that it's particles that are the lightest in a new symmetry of nature, the supersymmetry. It's the lightest supersymmetric particles. That was the popular view. Honors and awards were given to people who worked on this hypothesis. $10 billion were invested in the Large Hadron Collider by CERN, and CERN searched for supersymmetry and didn't find it. Okay, we went that path, and it wasn't successful. And my point is, you can take the entire community along a path that is very tight, and you herd the community such that nobody would deviate from that path the way that the critics are herding me. They want me to come back to the mainstream. The point is that by doing that, if the path leads in a good direction, that would be great. But very often you find that the mainstream is going along a path that doesn't lead anywhere. And if you allow others to deviate from the herd and explore other paths, we might find the correct answer, and we will increase the rate of discovery. That's my point. My point is science can be managed differently by allowing people to explore different ideas and encouraging them, actually, not criticizing them, not getting upset if they suggest something other than a rock to explain 3i Atlas.
Has anybody at Harvard ever told you to tone it down?
No. But I have a lot of respect for my colleagues at Harvard because they know who I am. I mean, they interact with me. So anyone that I work with, anyone that knows me, accepts this approach because they know that it comes from a good place. Those people that are criticizing me and trying to bring me down, I never spoke with. And I don't want to speak with because when you mud wrestle, you get dirty. It's much better to play chess.
Avi Loeb, thank you. And hopefully I will see you again in October, provided, if it is alien tech, that they're friendly aliens and they don't eat us.
I look forward to that.